this theme parlays into what we've done recently at Nationwide, around the regions.
What we do at scale is important, but when we get to the member level, it's important to be nimble enough to react. We, as an organization, from the very outset, it's about our members. And so the spirit of it is, let's let it all generate at the local level, and let's make sure we're taking care of our members locally.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. We're rewinding just a little bit this week on the podcast to our Dallas primetime show where, the show there was based around this theme of customer obsession. And it's a theme that played out in a number of different ways through conversations that were had on the main stage to breakout rooms and our Learning Academy classes. And really, it was built around this idea of sharing, the ways in which our retailers put the customer at the center of the shopping experience. And, it's conversations that we continue to have and, leading up to next prime time in Nashville in just a few weeks. And, it's a theme that also plays out in some of the things that Nationwide's doing. And this week we're talking to Patrick Maloney, our EVP of membership here on the podcast to, look at one of those ways, from not only just the discussions and the webinars and things we're doing to continue the customer obsessed theme, throughout what we do at Nationwide, but, with our regions, some pretty interesting and breaking news, sort of in a way, on the podcast, as far breaking as a podcast can get. But earlier this month, we announced at Nationwide that our regions were splitting into smaller sub-regions. We have our East and West teams, and they're going to be broken up into 6 smaller teams. And then, of course, the other affiliates still here at Nationwide. And, talking about how that's allowing our field team to be a little bit more streamlined and obsessed with the member experience, if you will, for our members at Nationwide. And some really cool things happening because of it, in terms of, more focused regional events and services that could come out of, these smaller regions that, things that are tailored to the members, within those smaller regions at Nationwide. So Patrick and his team have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to make this thing come to life. And they'll continue, of course, to see how things play out and evolve over time, and make sure that these regions are as efficient as possible for our members and, of course, our field team as well. And neat to be able to get him on just for a few minutes to share sort of the behind the scenes look at what's been going on, the whys, the whats, and the hows of all of this, and have that in the form of a podcast here. So let's dive into it. It's Patrick Maloney talking about our customer obsessed theme and our new regions here on the Independent Thinking Podcast. All right, we are back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, and anytime we can get Mr. Patrick Maloney on the podcast, we're in for a good one. This is I've seen you now digitally, a couple times here, virtually, I should say. This is we were just on a webinar together. I saw you on a stage somewhere in Dallas doing some things. So you've been a busy man. What's going on? How you doing?
I try to get the space out in public as much as I can.
No, we love it. I know it's been a busy time, but how are things going in your world? I know we got a lot to dive into, but just how are you? How are things going?
Overall, great. I mean, I couldn't be better. We have, to your point, we've got a lot of things going on here, and just and it feels it's the culmination of a bunch of years and bunch of months of effort, and it just feels like, okay, we're starting to get there. So, although business continues to be challenging every day, I just feel like we're putting the right pieces in place for long-term success for our members and the organization.
No, it's awesome. Well, we appreciate even just a few minutes of your time for a podcast, our EVP of membership. So lots to dive into. Like we said, I want to start kind of taking us back a month because I think that's a great way to sort of tee up the conversation. And, when we were in Dallas, there was a theme for anyone that was there. We talked about this customer obsessed theme that the show is really based around. And a lot of the conversations, I know it was played out, if you were at the keynote and the main stage, conversations there down to the different rooms, our East and West teams had, their own discussions and all that sort of stuff. But talk about the theme itself, set it up for those that weren't there. Like explain what this whole customer obsessed, theme was and sort of how it was portrayed throughout the show.
Yeah. It's a perfect setup. So I think a couple things. One is, our independent retailers have been obsessed with their customers forever. And I think, as we were going into this coming show, or this last show, was over the last couple of years, through the pandemic. And I think we've said this from the stage, like you could still miss a beat, not be 100% perfect, and still run a wildly successful business. And some of the, customer focus that our independent retailers always prided themselves on got a little pushed to the back, because all we were trying to do was figure out, how do we get more inventory? How do we, how many trips do I need to make to this house to complete this, kitchen order? And so we kind of wanted to recenter it and say, okay, the consumer that's coming in today is more discerning than they have been in the last 5 years. And their, PMAPs are back in play. We need to differentiate ourselves, go back to basics essentially, and differentiate ourselves from everybody else in the marketplace. So this customer obsession idea was, hey, let's start having those conversations, and let's share those conversations. And the idea is, everybody does their special thing in their market. And a lot of times, our members, hey, this is my secret sauce. Yeah. But as we start looking at the total, and it's, considering the, our competition is not our other members, really, it's big box. And how can we differentiate ourselves against the big box? So we took that as the theme for the show, and we built around, some different sessions, some different panels. So to your point, East, West, we did it from the main stage, and just got so much great information. And the cool thing is it's not, there are certain things that could take years to develop, but there's things that you could just turn tomorrow, and make a difference in your marketplace. And I think that was clear, through kind of these learnings that we had, and just listening to really smart folks that have been doing it for years, and actually may take what they do for granted. But when you sound it out and kind of put it into words, I mean, to see the people, like, they're, in the audience, their faces light up like, oh my gosh, I either can do that tomorrow, or I forgot I used to do that and I need to start doing it again. So it was a really cool concept, and I think played out live really well.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a line, and I'm not saying this because I, work on the magazine and like, I like it. I like reading the magazine, but there's a great line in Tom's, he has that letter that opens up the magazine, and he was like, there's so much other noise happening too, right, in the industry. And you, as you alluded to at the top, but like the customer obsession is the ability to focus on those things that you can control as a retailer, right? So, there's always going to be the other factors, but what can you do in your business? And you mentioned it, 5,000, but we have 5,000 different stories of how retailers are being customer obsessed, and sort of showing those, tactics, in their store, and stories that we can tell, really, which was awesome. Because I think, you mentioned the different ways it was on display at the show. I don't think there was, for all of the different members I heard talk about the things they do, I don't think I heard one member say the same thing that another member said.
Yeah.
Like, there was it was all different, like, ideas. And I mean, that's at the core of like what we do when we get together at a prime time. Like, that's what it's all about, right? So it was really, to your point, really cool to see it play out like that, and just how many different ideas there are.
Yeah, and the passion that everybody had and showed, it's, you talk about, being infectious, listening to someone, and it's some of it's simple stuff. And so just to see them sharing that and see other people absorbing it. One of the things that we also wanted to make sure we didn't miss was, people are busy, and there's so many other things going on in their world and their lives. And we also wanted to make this something that lived beyond just the live event, right? Because if you weren't in that room and you didn't hear it, you didn't write it down, where does it go? So I think we did a good job documenting kind of what happened from the main stage. But then we put a contest and a challenge out for others. Come to the show floor and tell us your story. These are a few stories, a few great stories. Tell us your story. And being on the floor and having members come up and say, I loved what I heard, but here's something we do.
Yeah.
It was awesome, and some really, really cool ideas. So we're going to continue to propagate that message with a webinar series. And we've done some different things post show that, I think we just need to make sure it's almost like advertising, right? You want to advertise where the customer is, We want to make sure we're presenting this information to however our members need to absorb it, whenever, wherever, and however.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up the webinar, because I had a question teed up, but how do you ask a question about something where like I have to play like I don't know what you're talking about, where I hosted the thing? So, the fact that you brought it up just makes it easy for me to talk about the fact that, hey, yeah, we did continue those conversations. And you were on that panel, part of the webinar as well. Obviously a different setting, but to your point about being able to have it in sort of different environments. And I know scheduling, if a member can't necessarily be at primetime with us, it's another way for them to experience this conversation. What was your sort of takeaway from that experience of the webinar and the discussions that were had there? And I'm not asking you to grade how I did or anything, but if you want to throw in there that I was a great host, feel free.
No, you were awesome. You were awesome. Hey, can you tell me about the webinar that I did?
Right.
No, you were awesome, as always. And I think, to me, it's the opportunity for people to speak in smaller groups. And I know we want to talk a little bit today about kind of what we've done for the regions. And it's about getting that peer-to-peer interaction at a size and scale that is not overwhelming, and that can generate true open conversation and dialogue. And I think we accomplished that with the webinar. And I hope that, so this will be posted in MemberNet, and the our members that weren't able to attend can pull it down. And we're going to continue that and again, propagate that kind of message and delivery mechanism. So just the interaction is great. I would tell you, from the main stage, sitting with these dynamic members, it's humbling, right? These folks are passionate about what they're doing. But even, the most modest dealer coming, on the show floor and like, hey, here's something I do. I don't know if it's great or not, and I'm going to throw it out there. And you know what? It's awesome. Like, they're really, really cool stuff.
Right.
I think customer obsession is a little like culture. Like culture, if you don't dictate or at least put a message out on, hey, here's what our culture is going to be, it's going to form itself. And customer obsession is the same way. If you don't really actively go out and show kind of your sales organization, your delivery organization, your entire team, where the customer falls on your list of importance, it's going to fall on its own. And so I think, those folks that shared and will share, it's clear the customer is first, and this is how we're going to, manage to that customer's expectation. And this is how we're going to win in the marketplace.
No, that's awesome. And I love all that, because you think of the scale of the ideas, and you talked about it a little bit ago, but like it doesn't have to be a massive thing either. It's just like paying attention to little details. You don't have to, Paul Sherman did it, but you don't have to build a house for people to train in. However, that's one idea, but like it scales down to like other things we heard of, just, I being sure to pay extra attention to the details of the delivery process, and putting the booties on, and like that kind of, like it could be as simple as that, and just going a little bit above and beyond to make that customer, know who they got that delivery from, or who they bought that new couch from.
Yeah. One of the ideas, and it was like, how much more simple can you get than communicating? Like, communicate, just post-sale, pre-sale, follow up, everything going great, and just even think about your life with, stuff that you've had delivered, or stuff that you've, whether it's a car dealership or wherever, just how disappointing that, like, all I need is an email or a text. And actually that was one of the points, is like, you don't need to talk to them. Just take their cell number. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody, more and more people would rather communicate via text, and just touch them, see how they're doing, see what they're doing. And the return customer, and then, oh, by the way, they tell two friends, because, wow, this was a great experience. And they're still, talking to me. I think that, I think the younger generation is more adept at kind of just quick communication. And, I think, for the longest time, we thought it had to be this long email and we had to have this long phone conversation. These little touch points are reassuring, comforting. And hey, we know the product's going on the truck tomorrow. It's coming back out. I don't know how many times we've talked to, folks that had bought something, regrettably at a big box, and they didn't hear anything. It was supposed to deliver on Monday. It's Wednesday. They haven't even heard from the organization, and so those things go so far. And again, not difficult, not
No.
difficult at all, but
It's
you
like
have to.
just like
You
a
have
little
to make it a
dopamine hit.
problem.
It's like,
Yeah,
like the text message, you see that alert come in, you're like, oh, that little smile in your head goes off. It's like,
yeah,
like that's
right.
all it takes. It's crazy.
But you
But
have to be intentional. You have to be intentional about it. You can't just hope it happens. It has to be a process.
oh, that's awesome. And we could talk about customer obsession in this way all day, I think. And like we said, we'll continue to have those conversations. But what I love is that we're kind of practicing what we preach, and I want to let you kind of tee it up and talk about it. You did a little bit you hinted at it a little bit ago, but really nicely kind of this theme parlays into what we've done recently at Nationwide, around the regions. And I mentioned East West at the beginning. A little bit different today than it was, even just a few weeks ago. I think 11 days ago officially as we're recording this, but as of May 1, talk about, the changes that we introduced, and we'll start from there.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and we as an organization, from the very outset, it's about our members, right? We're member obsessed, and we are, focused on the needs of those members. And as far back as even like our merger with Mega, when we merged, we had two different field organizations that had folks. Both of us had folks in the field, and the immediate reaction was, oh, we're going to have to, we're going to merge the field and have to lay people off because we don't, we're going to duplicate efforts. And our goal was not to do that at all, right? So as the minute we decided to merge the field, we said, hey, you know what? We want more folks in the field, less windshield time, more opportunity to interact with our members. And so, we did a real dynamic analysis of the market and just drew a line down the Mississippi and said, okay, we're going to have East and West. And that was about the extent of it. But the important part was we kept that headcount. We kept those folks in the field because we wanted to make sure we were covering our members' needs. What became clear in all of these little things that we do in this customer obsession panels, and something we've done at prime times for the last 4 or 5 prime times, was more of this peer-to-peer interaction. Mm-hmm. Like, it's one thing for us to get up and say, hey, this is what we think you should do. And it's completely different when 2 members go, hey, you know what, I'm doing this, you try it. And so with the success of all this peer-to-peer stuff, we said, how do we get better connected? How do we we've got a ton of people in the field. How do we get them more focused? How do we become more customer obsessed? And so, over the last several months, we've been trying to reshape and just look at what the best path forward is for that field organization. And as such, we came up with, we will break our 2 regions into 6 smaller regions. And we'll have a region director in each one of those regions. We'll have a couple of MSMs that are reporting to them. We'll have some MSSs, we call them. They'll have a larger group of dealers, probably less travel, but more, this type of interaction.
Yeah.
And so the spirit of that was, how do we, because the scale of Nationwide is very important. What we do at scale, negotiating programs, financing programs, all of that is important. But when we get to the member level, it's important to be nimble enough to react by region, and to create these smaller groups that can have true peer-to-peer interaction. And so the focus on that was, how do we make the region a little bit smaller, have someone responsible for it, so we know exactly what's going on in that marketplace. From a merchandising standpoint, it could be helpful. Like, if I look at specific categories like furniture doesn't necessarily have, outside of Ashley, doesn't have a player that, is across the board. And so, how could we focus on a certain market that has these specific needs, and how can we work backwards with our merchandising team? And so the spirit of it is, let's let it all generate at the local level, and let's make sure we're, listening, taking care of our members locally. And then if that builds out into 2 regions or across the entire organization, then we'll do that. And so, when we think about those 6 regions, just our 6 regions, we'll have 45 or 50 people in those
Yeah.
regions calling on our membership. And then you add like, our affiliates in United
Yep.
stores, nationwide Southwest, nationwide Florida, even DMI and ADC of NECO.
Yep.
We'll have 60 people in the field calling
Wow.
on our members. So, and the important piece of it is let's not just create things to create things and sit in a
Right.
windowless conference room and think this is the greatest thing in the world. Let's have people in member stores taking care of their problems on a daily basis. And then if, this problem is something that is across the board, let's figure out a solution. Let's put a solution together on a global scale.
Right.
Members.
Right. It kind of starts so I mean, I think back to the last couple of years. I don't know if it was necessarily born out of this, but we saw the region meetings that took place over. I think we did them up like the North I-10 sort of corridor,
Yeah.
and then down like a little bit lower. But the next go around, but like was that sort of the genesis for how we got to where we are?
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's just we did do a couple of region meetings, and that was something that as I came into this position, I wanted to make sure we were acting locally. And so those region meetings, again, we saw that peer-to-peer interaction and came out with so many great ideas like, oh, wow. And it's very similar to that, hey, just communicate.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, we hear it. Now let's go act on it. And so that kind of built into, hey, let's do this more. Primetime's a huge event. We've got thousands of people there. How do we make it small? How do we make it personable? And I think we've been able to do that through these peer-to-peer. Now we want to roll that out, into the regions.
No, that's awesome. So what'll for the member listening and they're seeing this Realignment, what's going to be the biggest change for them necessarily? As far as obviously you hear the region breakdown, there'll be a smaller region that they're a part of, but beyond that, is there anything that'll really change for them?
Well, we hope that, first of all, we're going to challenge them to engage, just to engage. And there's a lot of members that, listen, every single member is busy. And, there's so many things coming through that door every single day that they need to deal with. But we want to make it easier to engage with Nationwide. And to align those regions so that there is a group of support all around them. We don't just give an MSM, here's the car keys and a sandwich, go make us proud. They have a support team around them. And they are the tip of the spear in this organization. And to let our members and independent retailers know that, yep, you're talking to this one person, but there is this team, including Tom Hickman, our CEO, that is supporting this team first. Whatever this team needs, we're going to continue to invest in and put our time into. So I hope the members see better communication, quicker communication, results, and I want to make sure that we're listening first. We're not saying, hey, this is the greatest thing in the world. We have amazing business services. We know that every single one of our members should be using our digital platform and should be doing marketing and should be using our websites. But if they're not at that point in their journey, if they're not ready to make that, we need to make whatever they have today, their whatever their go-to-market strategy is, the easiest to work with, the most efficient. And then, okay, once we have that, let's figure out the next step. Let's figure out what's next for you. But let's solve your problems first.
No, that's awesome. And I love to, I know, communications by the time we're talking, by the time this is published, they'll have emails with a nice sheet made up of like all who's in their that's to me, when a member sees that, that'll be probably the biggest thing that hits them initially is like, they probably knew who their MSM was that they called on for support. But now, I mean, seeing that physical team within that smaller region that is all there for them, at the ready to support them, I think that's going to be pretty cool and impactful to see. Is that it's, I think, when you're talking to a field rep that there's more than just that one person, but to see it, in a physical form, like who's there to support you and how they support you, like that's awesome to me. And then just knowing too, like we talk about the events, but the ability probably, I imagine, to have more frequent, local sort of
Yeah.
regional type events is something that'll be pretty cool for them to experience, I guess, as these things sort of play out over the next couple of months and years.
Yeah, exactly. And we, like I said, we have great prime times, but
Yeah.
business happens every day, and we can't hold our breath, for twice a year to get together to solve problems. We need to be solving them, at retail speed,
Yeah.
in the local market. And I think these smaller regions will help us, allow us the opportunity to get smaller peer groups together, smaller councils together, and whether it's focusing on a problem within that market or a global problem, we're going to be hopefully be able to react quicker, and solve the issue faster.
No, that's awesome. And I know something too we talked about previously. Training is a big sort of part of this too. So tell us a little bit about that and sort of what's going on there from a training aspect.
Yeah, and so that's a great question. So as we built this out, we said this is great. We've got these 6 regions. We've got United here. We've got Southwest here. But training in our organization always kind of lived somewhere. I lived, at Prime Media, and it was a separate piece of our business. A great piece of our business, really successful. Our Nationwide Learning Academy is second to none. And so, we weren't solving the problems at ground level first locally, right? So as we put this together, one of the most important pieces of this move was we moved training into the field organization. So where the problem arises, or where the rub is, or where this challenge is, we're kind of curating the solution at ground level locally, and then building it into a training portal. We brought 2 amazing people in, and they have specific roles. So Karen Honeycutt came in, and she's training in the field organization and will work with our MSMs, our field team, to help them learn about our products and develop our products. What we do, and it can be overwhelming and complicated, for again, a member that is doing all of these things, the chief cook and bottle washer, and they got to make sure there's fuel in the truck, and the insurance is paid, and the lights come on. And oh, by the way, they have to be on the cutting edge of digital and the cutting edge of this. And so our MSMs have the same type of challenge. It's probably the hardest. Well, I say it's the hardest job in this organization, because
I don't disagree.
you have to know a little. You have to be a little expert in everything that we do. And you think about consumer finance, inventory finance, digital, website, it's overwhelming. And so it was important for us to bring Karen in to help quiet the noise in what we do, and make sure that we're not trying to just learn big words, that we truly understand what each piece of what we're putting together, for our members really represents. And like I said earlier, our members may not be on that spot of their journey yet, and that's okay. Let's make sure that you're maximizing this much of the journey. And we know there's more out there, but we just don't want to throw stuff at you and wow you with how intelligent we are. We want to really find these real world solutions that are easy to understand. So Karen's working on that piece, working with all of our business services to make sure we're putting this in a really easy, digestible kind of, hey, here's what it means, and ultimately what's the bottom line. Like,
right,
this is perfect. It uses this technology and that and this. What's the
all this
double line?
What's the equal? I get the equation, but what does it equal?
Right. And so she's going to be awesome, and has already proven to be just an incredible asset to the organization. Well, and secondly, part of our training is helping our manufacturing partners, and our business service partners get their message out to frontline sales folks. So the members sales organization, and they want to train on product, and they want to train on this. Well, like I said, we have the most robust learning academy, and the ability to, put everything on
Yep.
4K and, do a training and all of that stuff. But someone needs to manage that. Someone needs to manage hey, here's all of the stuff that's coming in from manufacturers. How do we get that message out?
Yep.
And then also training our manufacturers on what we do. They need to know kind of what we're doing and what we're delivering to our membership and how they can utilize it to kind of explode their brand. So we brought Sean Ashby in to run training on that side of the business. So we've got training for our internal team and training for our members' internal teams as well. And both of those live in the field organization today.
It's awesome because they do play, if you think about it, hand in hand. I mean, it's a important part of the member journey. And our field teams out talking to members, so making sure that they're well educated and able to point the members in the right direction too, to the services that they need, and then obviously on the other side too, so that our members can get the education their sales teams need, so that they can talk to their customers. So no,
it's about talking to everybody in just layman's terms, in real world. What does it mean? What's the point? What's after the equal? And so there's two types of members. Some are experts. Some are experts in what they do, and we learn from them. And then there's others that don't even want to know. They just know, they want to know that it's going this is the right thing to do. And just, hey, you guys do that. I'm going to take care of my operations, and we can manage both of those. And I think, by putting this training and breaking these regions up, like, I just hope we can be that much quicker and that much more efficient.
Well, it's a lot of work that has been, I know, going on behind the scenes, that we're now just barely a week starting to see the fruits of that labor. So anything, kind of wrap it up, exciting to you as we get close to Nashville and sort of seeing this manifest for the first time? Is there anything you're looking forward to about this?
I love the idea, like I said, of just this rapid communication and things that can happen a lot quicker. And we said it earlier, right? That speed of retail. We can't sit in these windowless conference rooms and come up with what we think is the next great play. That the game is going on right now, and we need to be involved in the game. So I hope to see more, like, we can get more preliminary information coming in to the show, so the merchants can better negotiate programs, cashbacks, over and above programs on the buy side.
Right.
And then also our marketing teams can, really, hey, this is what we know is going on in the marketplace in the next 2, 3, 4, 6 months, from a promotional aspect. So not only, it's not just the buy, right? It's, hey, that's important, but how do we sell this through? What's the latest and greatest technology? Is it chat? Is it this? Is it that? And so I think getting that information as soon as and quick as we can, and building that, it just helps us build a longer.
I'll be interested too. Obviously the speed of it's one thing, and then you also talked about this too, the customizing based on the region, because what's going on. It's a great example, right? We're in early spring. I think a couple months ago, earlier this year, and what's early spring is like in the Northeast, and there's still snow on the ground potentially, to like what's going on out west. Like the things you're able to talk about from a product standpoint, a little bit different. So to see sort of how those play out, maybe a better example is stay on the east. You got the Northeast and the South, down in the Southeast. So like what differences could you find there as far as some of those things? So that'll be cool to watch play out as well too.
Yeah, and that's it's both products, and it's what trips the customers buttons.
Yeah.
It's can be the program, could be long-term financing here, and it could be just a cash rebate there. Like those are opportunities that are open to us, and we don't want to make it more confusing, but we also want to make, like, efficiency, and just keeps ringing in my head, like, how do we become more efficient, faster to market? So I'm excited about that, and what we're doing, and I know this isn't about that, but what we're doing with data and Primetrics, that's going to build up from the region level, and our point of sale information coming in is going to help us make smart decisions, not just because they feel good, or not just because this is a good guy. Here are the facts behind it, and so that's always feeding kind of some of the decisions and some of the processes that we put in play. So I just think being able to regionalize it, as it expands, is going to make us that much more powerful.
Yeah, it's awesome. A lot of exciting potential. And things that are already kicking off. So it's awesome to see. And I know you guys, like I said, have been hard at work, and the work continues for sure. But nice to take an opportunity to breathe for a minute and look at what you've done in the form of a podcast, if anything.
Yeah,
But right,
a minute.
Just
You
a
can breathe for
minute.
30 seconds. Yeah.
Right. Oh no, that's great. Well, we appreciate the time, and I probably took up more than I needed to here for you. Like, you got people, I'm sure, calling on you to get back to it, but thank you for taking that time and diving into this with us. So we look forward to watching it continue.
Happy to join. Thanks, bud.
Awesome. And thanks again to Patrick. Cool conversation. Like we said, the customer obsessed theme is something we'll continue to see and hear a lot about, over the next several weeks, I'm sure, through primetime in Nashville and beyond. But also, of course, the new regions, and seeing how those play out for our new dealers and the field team, and all the exciting opportunities that exist because of these smaller regions. So we'll look forward to seeing how the work continues, and the benefits that come out of it. So appreciate him taking that time, and as always, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast. And we'll catch you next time.